Ich bin Assistant Editor beim Jakobin Magazin und ich bin sehr froh, dass ich heute diese Diskussion mit Peter moderieren darf. Peter Mertens hat nämlich das Buch Meuterei herausgegeben und das ist auf Deutsch erschienen beim Premier Verlag. Das ist auch der Verlag, der Jakobin herausgibt. Darum bin ich natürlich extra froh, dass ich heute hier bei euch sein darf. Ich sag's gleich, ich mache nur diese kurze Introduction kurz auf Deutsch. Wir werden dann den restlichen Abend auf Englisch reden, weil ich Peter nicht zwingen will, sein School German den ganzen Abend hier forcieren zu müssen. Vielleicht am Schluss. Ich stelle euch mal kurz Peter Mertens vor. Er ist Generalsekretär der belgischen PTB, das ist die belgische Partei der Arbeit. Und das ist eine der wenigen linken Parteien, die in den letzten Jahren in Europa einen großen Aufwind erfahren hat. 2019, das ist jetzt ein Wikipedia-Fun-Fact, wurde er zum ersten niederländischsprachigen Marxisten im föderalen Parlament Belgiens seit 1981 gewählt. Applaus dafür vielleicht. Peter, es freut mich sehr, dass du heute da bist. Bevor wir jetzt ins Gespräch reingehen, möchte ich euch noch kurz etwas zu dem Buch sagen. Und diese Erzählung über das Buch beginnt im Jahr 1768, weil damals haben im englischen Sunderland massenhaft Seeleute ihre Arbeit niedergelegt. Sie haben damals bessere Arbeitsbedingungen gefordert und demonstrativ die Segel gestrichen. Und von diesem englischen Striking the Sails leitet sich auch unser deutsches Wort Streik ab. Die Leute damals haben es aber nicht Streik genannt, sie haben es Meuterei genannt. Und Meutereien gibt es natürlich heute immer noch und gerade über diese hat Peter sein Buch geschrieben. Besonders jetzt, wo sich unsere Weltordnung im Umbruch befindet, lebt der Kampf für Gerechtigkeit wieder auf. In seinem Buch Meuterei lässt Peter die Kämpfenden von heute zu Wort kommen und bietet so einen neuen Blickwinkel auf unsere Gegenwart. Und im Mittelpunkt von diesem Buch steht die Hoffnung, dass die Meuterer des Nordens und die Meuterer des Südens einander die Hände reichen. Für eine echte demokratische, soziale und ökologische Wende. I will now switch to English. Peter, let's maybe start with the first question and something simple. In your book you use the metaphor of mutinity, so the Meuterei. Could you maybe briefly explain why you chose this word and where you currently see mutinities happening?
Thank you. I walked around today. It's the first time I've ever been to a hosting festival, and I'm really impressed. I'm very serious because there is a relaxed atmosphere, political atmosphere, and it's good weather. It's a nice festival. I really think so. And we wrote down 10 or 15 things we will imply also in Belgium and we will use in Belgium. So thank you for the Volksstimme Festival. It is important. Thank you for having me and the book presentation. Mutiny, I heard, it was Fiona Hill. She was a member of the National Security Council of the United States, so the military board of the United States. And after the illegal invasion of Russia in Ukraine, there was a vote in the General Assembly of the United Nations. Two kind of votes. The first kind of vote was to condemn Russia to invade illegally the Ukraine soil. And rightly so, most countries in the world condemned Russia. But the second vote was to impose Russia sanctions. And then the majority of the General Assembly of the United Nations, they said no. And the United States didn't expect that. The no at this General Assembly, they didn't expect that. And then Fiona Hill said there was a mutiny happening in the General Assembly of the United Nations. Because the majority of the countries, they didn't vote like we told them to vote. Because before, with sanctions, with coercion, because all kind of measures, etc., most of the countries, they voted like the United States wanted them to vote. And for the first time, it was switched around about the question of sanctions. And so I thought, okay, thank you, Fiona Hill. If that is mutiny, I do like mutiny. And I started also, I get an email from the Research Institute. It exists in the Netherlands of mutiny in the history. I get 800 pages about history of mutiny. Very interesting thing. mainly saying that mutiny in history was not only the taking over of the ships. The ships in the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries were the factories of the seas. 1,000 people very working there, 1,000 people hierarchically organized, and it was not only the taking over of the ship, the traditional mutiny, but it was all kinds of resistance on the ships. One on 10 slave ships in history, there was mutiny. 1 on 10. A lot of slave ships they took over. That's one kind of mutiny. The second kind of mutiny, what happened in history was the most of the ideas. These ships, they didn't only transported goods everywhere, but also ideas. Like the French Revolution inspired the Haitian Revolution, but also the Haitian Revolution via Cuba inspired the French Revolution. And for the French edition of my book, I had a discussion with the editor, the French editor, and he said I had to adapt that part. And I said, why? And he said, no, the French Revolution, they didn't learn anything about Haiti. And I said, I'm sorry, but they really did. They are not at the source of every revolution. I very much respect the French Revolution, but they were at their time radicalized by the Haitian Revolution. And this kind of metaphor where revolutionary ideas and revolutionary practices of the North, the global North and the South, even at that time, I use for the book, because I think still today there is a Euro-chauvinism, and Euro-chauvinism thinking that like migration is the big problem in Europe, etc. Like in Europe, our problems are the only problems in the world. But if you don't see the global picture, if you don't see the planet, you cannot understand your own life neither. You cannot understand neither the life of the working class. And if you don't see the rise of China and Asia and even India, so the Asian economics, you cannot understand the American politics, because they are a reaction towards the rise of China. The tariff war is a reaction, the economic nationalism is a reaction. And so I do think today also the revolt that is happening in the global south and the revolt that is happening here, they have to link. So the mutiny of the global south has to link itself with the mutiny of the global north. And I use, and I will finish with that, the word mutiny also because I am very aware that the global level of class consciousness is low. And I am very aware that the metaphor mutiny means there is a rage. People are not content. People don't feel seen. People don't feel heard. People don't feel represented. And they express themselves in all kinds of directions. Maybe religion, maybe extreme right, maybe radicalization, maybe I don't... But there is a rage at the base. There is some kind of mutiny in saying no to this world order, in saying no to this kind of world we don't know. They don't know how to say no. There is no class conscious. So the book is not called Class Conscious. It doesn't sound at all, of course.
It's not a sexy title.
No, it's not a sexy title at all. But it's also called Mutiny because it's a very low level of consciousness. But it is a level of consciousness how to start. I will stick with that.
Thank you. I think you're quite vividly already describing that what many call like the end of the unipolar moment in the world, where the United States is not the global hegemon anymore. And we really do see this rise of the multipolar order that you're describing. And what is interesting for me is how Europe reacts to that. Because you mentioned this in the book, and that, for instance, people like the French leader, President Macron, he wants to envision Europe as kind of a third bloc in this context. So where you have like the global south, the United States, and like Europe as something third. And he envisions Europe kind of the way he wants Europe to be. A third bloc is a very imperial vision, so it's rooted in this version of still Western dominance. However, like from a left perspective, of course, this is not what we want. But what do you think? What role could Europe play in such a reconfigured world order?
Well, first of all, I have very much difficulties to imagine Macron saying that, because Macron saying we have to have a third bloc on the world level when he's not even capable to have a very small bloc in France. I don't know what's wrong with the guy. The French government will not be there after September the 8th. There will vote of the confidence, and so he has not even majority bloc in France, and he's talking about the majority. So I don't know what's up in this kind of, and that's the problem. He's there in the Oval Office before Trump. And it's like a bug. Yes, Mr. Trump, no, Mr. Trump, yes, Mr. Trump, no. And that's Macron, and Merz is the same thing. Friedrich Merz from Germany, and all these European leaders without any leadership. I don't understand how they're gonna create some kind of European imperial. They're not capable at all. Europe is a disaster also on the level of the leadership, and it is some kind of problematic, because you could argue that there is still a moment for a sort of a kind of the goal, French, not NATO, not allied, not puppy of the US being European Union, but there are not even forces in European Union at this time who say we were going to break up. No, they all went to the Oval Office. They all kneeled to Kaiser Trump. They all said okay with the 59. Not all. Some Spanish comrades said to me, the Spanish government did resist some things about the trip, and the Slovenian government, but globally in Europe, where are the leaders? So I don't see it. But I do not agree with this vision that if we should break with the European Union, with the United States, which we should do on the economic level, on the military level, on the ideological level, we should break, and we should have another world vision, but not to reinforce European imperialism, not to reinforce French troops coming in the Sahel again. They were kicked out just recently out of the Sahel. We don't have to have an European imperialism to answer the American imperialism. No, we have to have a new position in the European Union, a socialist position or a democratic position, to have trades with all countries, with the BRICS countries, for example. That's the raising forces, and Europe can, I think, only find a way out when they get real about this world and have a world vision and not an Atlantic vision. The Atlantic vision is dead. That's my opinion. We are a puppy of the US on all levels, on all the energy level. $650 billion for buying very, very, very expensive American gas, very, very dangerous gas also on the climate level. 600 billion euro investment in the military. Belgium, our government, they will buy 11 F-35s. We don't need F-35s. If Belgium, if you leave the airport with the F-35, you're already left Belgium. No, this is not a defense measure for them. But it costs a lot, and the technology to start an F-35 stays in the Pentagon. I don't know whether you know, Germany will buy F-35s too, but they are kept in dependence with the American technology for many years, and we have to break that with that. That's my opinion. But I don't see for the moment leadership that will do it. I don't think it will be we need an imperialist Europe as an answer. I think peoples of Europe have to unite in the coming class struggles on the economic, socio-economic level and on the peace level to force an alternative. That's my vision on that.
What is interesting about that is also that, of course we have this shift away from unipolarity, but also if we look at what the United States does, it still acts with impunity, and many others are compelled to fall in line. Like we see that today, especially in the in the US-backed Israeli genocide in Gaza, we see that basically the US can still do whatever it wants, and especially global South countries, have to often fall in line with that. I mean, do you have any ideas on how they could break free of such a cycle of dependence? I mean, it's happening to some extent, but still we see that the US is still a global hub.
I think you have to see both sides. There was the movement of the non-aligned countries in the 60s and the 70s, and this movement of non-aligned countries was very politically articulated against imperialism, and they tried to seek an answer to the dollar, to the IMF, to the neo-colonial strategies of the United States. And there was a power of this non-aligned movement, and they came together with great leaders from all over the global south, in Bandung, in Cairo, etc. But there was one weak situation, and that was the economic situation of all these countries that became independent in the 50s and the 60s. After we defeated fascism, after the working class and the Soviet Union in Europe defeated fascism, there was also the anti-colonial, the decolonial movements in the global south, and they seek sovereignty, and they get sovereignty on a political level, but not on the economic level. So they were very strong politically, anti-imperialist, but weak economically. Today is almost the other way around. If you see the 10 BRICS countries, they are very, very weak politically. There is no global left BRICS country project. The BRICS countries is very pragmatic. You have different countries together. You have China and you have India. You can discuss on China, on the role of China, socialist or not socialist, on which level or not. In India, you can discuss the Modi government, a very racist, nationalist, chauvinist government, but working together with India. There's South Africa in it. South Africa pursuing Israel before the court, the International Court of The Hague. Big time South Africa, thumbs up South Africa, I mean. There is Brazil with Lula, very fragile situation now. He has not a majority, Lula. Lula has a government, he has to govern with other fractions of the big capital, and so he cannot do what he wants. So it's a fragile situation. And then you have the new oil-producing countries now with the BRICS. And so politically, reactionary regimes, progressive regimes, etc., all together. Very pragmatic. But economically, they represent almost half of the world population. They represent 44% of the world's crude oil today. They represent 32% of the natural gas in the world today, and already today it's 1/4 of the global GDP in the world that is produced in the 10 BRICS countries. So there is a rise economically of this BRICS country, and it will not stop. I think one of the problems of Euro-chauvinism is not seeing the rise of this BRICS country. It is big time. We don't know how it's going to end politically, but they are searching for an alternative. Drink something, sorry. And so that's a big difference with the situation of the non-aligned movement.
And would you say that what BRICS does forever, is this mainly a thing that is happening on the economic level, or is this also like, does this have political, like to what extent is this also political level?
I think the most important political articulation today of BRICS countries is Palestine. And I think Palestine and the genocide, the US-European genocide in Palestine, and I'm going to repeat that, the US-European genocide in Palestine, it is a turning point in the world, because for the first time ever, there is a genocide happening live on our smartphones. Maybe you could argue, non-popular opinion, maybe you could argue that some people didn't know about the concentration camps in Germany in 35, 36, 37. No one can deny now the concentration camps. No one can deny the bombardments of the hospitals. No one can deny the bombardments of the schools. No one can deny the ethnic cleansing happening in Palestine. We see it in real time before us, and it is a turning point in the world. It is a tipping point, what is happening. And the fact that it is the weapons come from the United States. 70% of the weapons of these big 14,000 pound bombs, they come from the United States. The bombing machines come from the United States and from Germany. 30% of the weapons of Israel comes from Germany. And the economic input comes from Europe. The Europe association with Israel is the most important economic association with the genocidal state. Without the help of Europe, this genocide would not be possible. So it is not only an Israeli genocide, it's not only a Zionist genocide, it's also a US-European genocide. And I think the way the people, and not only the history, but today already the peoples in the world, the different peoples, look towards this genocide marks a big difference. There is that in the global south, there is global unanimity among the peoples to condemn this genocide. The fact, I think also in the public opinion in the north is like that. There is most of the peoples in the north and the south, they do condemn the genocide. They want an economic embargo, they want a military embargo, they want all the measures Europe took in 2 days against Russia and never took in 2 years against Israel, being taken against Israel. No, I do think so. But the fact is, I think that BRICS, and when South Africa, I was there in The Hague with the Hague group, when the South African lawyers and the South African government, they pursued the Israeli state and the Israeli IDF army for genocide. It was a big case, a well-documented case. And the fact that the South Africans had to do that, and that there was no European country willing at that time to join South Africa, says it all. Yes, the BRICS countries, the Hague Group, Colombia, the Bolivian government until recently, they are pursuing Israel for. So if the question is there a political weight also of the BRICS countries? Yes, I would say.
Now we've mainly talked about what in your book you call the mutiny on deck. But you also talk, so this is for all who have not read the book so far, so this is the mutiny by global South states who are fighting Western hegemony. But Peter also talks a lot about what he calls mutinies under deck. So these are the workers, the communities in the global South countries, in places like India, who are fighting their governments for a better life. And what I found interesting about you often argue in the book that you see mutinies under deck happening everywhere, and I'm sometimes not so sure about it because there are also many places in the world where rebellion in the past has been so heavily pushed down by governments. I think, for instance, of what happened to places like Egypt or general the Arab region after the Arab Spring, where you have a new security architecture where rebellion or mutiny is so much, it's so much harder. And I'm wondering, like, those mutinies under deck, do you see them happening everywhere, or are they concentrated only in specific places? What do you make of that?
First of all, it's an important question also, I think, for Europe and for everywhere. What about the different level of class struggles? Some people say also why it's so calm in Germany and why there is a general strike again in France. It is in the blood of the French and they want to strike, and it's in the blood of the Germans and they want to obey. No. It's not like that. It's not because it's a quiet situation that people agree. And that is very important. It is not because the situation is quiet that people agree with the government. In order to come in action, in order to organize, in order to speak out, you need some kind of organization, you need some kind of space, and all these kinds of space and organization that comes in waves. It goes up and it goes down like ebb and flood. You have to be convinced of that. You can have a quiet situation for 10 years and then a period of class struggle, and then maybe that it's very, very big. And you have to be confident of that. It can be calm, but it doesn't mean that the people are accepting and agreeing with everything that's done. It's also in the global south like that. That being said, I do think that there are many waves forward, and if there is a wave forward, we should also have a megaphone for that wave. Because I do think in the traditional media, when there is the biggest strike in human history, for example in India, for the Indian farmers going on strike with 250,000 and then 1 million, etc. farmers for a year and winning the strike, No one said something about this strike on the Belgian television. No one said something. We don't know about these strikes. When the Metal Union of South Africa is going on strike against the liberalization, people don't talk in Belgium about that, in the European media about that. When the peasants of the landless peasants of the Brazil, they occupy territories, etc., and there are 500,000 and they are winning also some strike, we don't hear about that. And I think we also have to be a megaphone for the strikes that are happening, and to connect each other and to go to the strikes. I would argue also, when there is a general strike in France, the 10th of September, block on two, block everything, that's the slogan, nice slogan, block everything, the 10th of September, when it should be possible with your trade union central, hire a car and go with 5-6 people to there. No, really, I mean it. Go to the general strike in Brussels, in Belgium, the 14th of October. We can learn from each other. And also, when we have contact with comrades from India, from Brazil, etc., let them speak about and let them talk also about their struggles. I do think there is a mutiny that's happening, and I am not idealistic. I know it is ebb and flood. I know it's up and down. But we are, what is our task as communists, as progressives? Our task is not to have the lens on the defeats, and because that the right wing does, all the media is doing the defeats. You cannot organize, you cannot win, etc. All the task of the global media is to make you feel very, very small. You can't change it. You are a small individual. We have to have a task also to make people great again, the working class great again, emphasize all the struggles, all the spontaneous solidarity that is there. That's in my. It looks simple, but it's very, very important in my view. We can organize what. And so yes, we have to emphasize what's happening on mutiny in the global north and in the global south. And there is more mutiny than you think. There is more small class struggles than you think. It's not very conscient. We have to, but there is no reason for pessimistic. There is no reason for pessimism. Yes, okay, there's many reasons for pessimism. I fucking know. War, genocide, destruction of the planet, and they have the power, fucking hell. Yeah. Okay. But we know all that. That's not our task is not to organize tents with discussions, and we don't have to organize the collective depression. Yeah. What's that for kind of left? We are not organizing people to. Hey, you know this debates, when you're not depressed entering the debate, you're surely depressed leaving the debate. What kind of fucking left is that? That's not our task. We have to empower people, not idealistically, make them feel proud again, make them feel you are the worker, you are the working class, you create all the wealth of the world, it's your future, it's etc. That's our task, and that we have to transpire, in my opinion.
I think one reason for the pessimism that we also see among the left right now is that many mutinies that you describe in the global north have not been as successful as people wanted them to be. I think of the French revolt against the pension reform. You also talk a lot about the NHS protests in the UK. And like, after such a defeat or not reaching your goals, how do you think that the left can there rise again?
We say, okay, if you wage a struggle, a small struggle or a big struggle, whatever, you can win and you can lose. And like Bertolt Brecht said, if you don't struggle, you have already lost. If the public authority wants to close down a swimming pool, a local public swimming pool, and people don't want it, and it's closed down and you've done nothing, you lost anyway. You feel small. If you're able to have 2-3 people saying, what the fuck are they doing? We pay taxes and they close our swimming pool, maybe we should do something. And we invite 8 neighbors and etc. We are 10 people, and we start a petition and we start an action. We're trying to have the swimming pool open. Maybe we win, maybe we lose, I don't know. we can win also these small fights. But even in the case that we lose this thing, what is the balance of it? That's the second debate. The first debate is the struggle itself. The second debate is what did we learn? You can lose the mind even after a socio-economic win, and you can win the mind even after a socio-economic loss. Wow, what a difficult phrase. Meaning, people that never have been together, but they came together with their neighbors to have this swimming pool open, maybe they learned that working together, struggling together is the only way around. They learned that. They lost the swimming pool, they learned that consciousness. And so, if you also on a bigger scale, it's also about, I don't know what's going to happen the 14th of October in Belgium. I really do think it will be one of the biggest manifestations working class men ever in Belgium, the 14th of October. There is a race, but maybe we don't win. And then we have the discussion. The Social Democrats will say, okay, now you see you can't win, and they will try to lower down the consciousness of the people and spread defeatism. That's what they always do. That's their tasks. But if we are able to say, okay, look at our power, look what you did, look maybe in your cleaning company, you were 2 or 3 in the trade unions and you brought 15 people in a strike. And you can learn to organize on the long term, because our project is on a long term, and so also our defeats and our wins is also to be seen on the long term. And that's very important, because otherwise, of course, they have the power. The balance of power is negative for us. It's difficult to win socio-economic because they are fucking capitalists. No, they want maximum profit. It is difficult when the factory is closing down, when Audi Brussels says we are leaving. How to win? They decide to do, okay, occupation we did, etc. But now there is a group of Audi Brussels. They are very proud. They said, okay, the industry is ours. They have an alternative plan on the industry, etc. We didn't lose all on Audi Brussels, even in that situation, which is a very big. And so I would like to reconsider these things about what is winning and what is losing, also on a long-term perspective, also on a conscious perspective, on an organizational perspective, etc. Because otherwise we're going to defeat, and all these Panon kind of types and Rassemblement, they're filling up the media with their fake victories while the planet is burning. I'm not that pessimistic. I know of course it's difficult. I really know it, but it is not impossible. I think I will finish with that. I think maybe we have also sometimes a tendency to overestimate the power of the other class and underestimate our own power. This tendency is that they are not very smart people. Not everyone knows what they just have the power. Macron, etc. If you see them like that with Trump, you can't possibly say, oh, what a nice leader. Oh, my fate, I put it in their hand. No one says it about that. They are not a fucking smart branch of the planet. No, it's not. They have the power. Okay, they have, but we can at a long time defeat them.
It's good to hear that in Belgium there's such a strong response, and I also wish you best luck for your day. Because what I'm wondering is that, considering the urgency of many of the events that are happening, I don't know if you've been to an Austrian supermarket since you've arrived here. I suggest you not to do it. I lived in the Netherlands 2 years ago and it felt like a paradise because everything was so cheap in comparison, and the Netherlands is expensive, so it was really. You saw in the last years in Austria, also in Germany, but in Austria especially for the prices, how everything went up a lot. And considering this urgency, I'm sometimes wondering whether the response to it is rather low. I mean, you've touched up on it a bit, and that it's a question of like political leadership, but also why do you think that in places like Austria and also to some extent Germany, that action is rather tame? What could be reasons for that?
Oh, seriously, I don't know. I should, like I said, maybe action takes another way and another form to express, and there is maybe need to some to some patience that way. It is not because there is a big manifestation that it is not because there is not a big manifestation that people don't agree. That I don't think. I do think also people in Austria and in Germany, they don't agree with the prices. I do think that the ripping off of working class people don't agree with that. And it can be that there is an electoral period also of resistance. It's not a permanent resistance, but it's like that KPÖ is winning some also on the housing question, etc. That's also a form of resistance. It's an electoral resistance. It's not the main resistance, but it is a kind of resistance. There are some kind of electoral phases in Latin America and South America. There's a lot of discussion what is the resistance on the streets and what is the form of the resistance in the ballot in the elections. You can't have both, but why at this moment in Austria, I don't know. That's up to you to invest, but it cannot be that people are agreeing with the very expensive energy prices. I don't think people in Germany agree with that. I don't people in Germany will agree with the 15% tariffs of Trump. That's ripping off the German car industry, etc. That's ripping off the German steel industry. It will be destroyed by Trump in this measure, and the everyday life will become more expensive because of all these kind of deals. And I think we must make the link of these energy deals, of this Trump deal, of this NATO politics with the cost of living. But how things are expressed, I don't know. No.
Yeah, it's very tricky because we can also see that a lot of anger and a lot of frustration that we see, and I don't think that is so different in other European countries, is absorbed by the right. Why are they so much better at channeling these feelings, so these feelings of anger at everything, than the left?
Yeah, okay, they have the power also, and I think if they have money, they have the media, and they are flexible in their tactics also. I see it in Belgium because also for our party, the fascist party in Belgium is the biggest party. I will repeat that. The fascist party is not in power, but is the biggest party. So it's not because we have 10% or 15% in Brussels or 20% in Wallonia that the fascist party is not the biggest party. And so, like, I live in Antwerp. We are the biggest party in Antwerp, in the north of the second, the third party is a fascist party. On the docks, our comrade dock workers, they have a lot of discussions with people who vote for the fascists. What do we say about it? We say, first of all, people who vote for the fascists, we discuss with them. We had a lot of discussions about that. I will repeat, people who vote for the fascists, we discuss with them, we even listen to them. Why are you voting for the fascists? What is your plan, etc. And in the party we say there is no schoolmaster attitude. I being schoolmaster with his finger saying you don't have to do this, you may do that. No, first listen to these people. It's not the organization of the fascists, it's not the leadership. It's the voters of the fascists, because we try to regain some people from people, and we are succeeding, but it's 1 per 1 or 10 per 10, but it's not a big mass, but we are succeeding, and we have to do that. But it's going, the water is going from the top to the bottom. The spontaneous wave is going to the right wing in all of the world. It is Trump, it is all over Europe. It is big capital is organizing a right-wing tendency on all levels, and that's not only the fascist party. The whole migration debate is not organized by the fascist party, but by the traditional party. The whole debate about what's the power of the executive and the parliamentary power is not organized by the fascist party, but by the traditional party. The whole question about breaking down the welfare state is not organized by the fascist party, but it's Peter Mertens who is saying we are breaking down the welfare state. So there is a carpet, and a red carpet to walk on for the fascists, and we are walking against the current, we are walking against the wind. So it's much easier for them, but they have a disadvantage, because at the end of the day, even they can do like they are social, even they can do if they are for affordable housing, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, they are a party of big capital. They are the Trump can disguise himself a little bit as a pro-working man, but he's a billionaire for big capital, and so that's their disadvantage. So it is. But to be quite honest, also for us it is a difficult struggle, because otherwise they wouldn't be the biggest party in our country. But I think the attitude from this class is our class, the working class is our class, the youth has to be gained with us, that has to be ours. And secondly, an unpopular opinion, I think we have to learn some things from them. Very unpopular opinion with some how not what they say, listen, not but how they speak, how they communicate, etc. We can learn one thing or another from them. They learned historically from the communists. They copied the communists to disguise themselves as social party. Okay, well, learn again. Let's learn again from the things, the way they communicate, the simplicity of. We have a debate in our party also that some of our spokesmen and in the parliament, they call them populists, because we are criticizing, for example, the political class also in Belgium. That we have, for example, a debate now on the general strike. The people who are deciding that you have to work to 67 years and that your pension is 2,250 euros, so not even the minimum, the minimum pension, etc. The same people deciding them can go on pension on 62 years and having a pension for 4,000 euros. Totally populist slogan, we use it. We say, okay, that's not normal, that the people that earn 4,000 will earn 4,000 euro pensions and go on pension on 62 years, that people can decide for the working class people. We have a debate, but because some people in our party say, okay, that's very populist, and it is, but we use also, we don't let this criticism to in the hands of the extreme right, you know. It cannot be the only point, but a little bit speaking with populist and anti-establishment rhetoric is necessary also to reach. It cannot be the base of your politics, but you don't have to be afraid neither to have this radicality and anti-establishment. Because if you are seen as just another party of the big woke left in their rhetoric, you are cooked. Yeah. Of course, then you are like the Greens and like the other, and they want to raise taxes and they don't want, etc. You are fucking cooked. How to distinguish yourself as a class party towards the other party? You have to, maybe you can find other ways, but you have to think about it, not to be seen as one part of the big traditional establishment left. We are not establishment left. We're fucking communists. We want a revolution. We want socialism. We are not pro-establishment. So how to translate that? We have to reflect on this kind of things and not to leave the radicality in language and in image and in soul towards the extreme rights.
I mean, you've already put it quite well, and in the preface of your book you also argue that that is probably a controversial take, I don't know, that Europe's main problem is not right-wing extremism but the left's lack of confidence. To what extent then would you say that the rise of the far right is also linked to the weak performance of the left?
Yeah, of course, far right is also the fact that there is that room of the far right. We can discuss about history and we have to discuss. But I wrote it down, it's provocative, I know. I was in South Africa presenting my book on, for the South African metal trade union, the NUMSA, the book. And okay, we had a discussion. After discussion, they came to me, the trade union leaders, metal trade union, and they said, "Oh, Peter, you're from Belgium and you're from Europe." Oh, and they hugged me. "I'm so sorry. It has to be so hard, and I'm so sorry. And you're really from Europe." Etc., etc. And then there were some Indian comrades, and they come to me, "Oh, from Europe, Peter." Oh. And I said, "What's the problem?" "Yeah, you're all fascist and all fascist. It has to be." And they saying from countries where there was apartheid, there was in India, mass struggle, etc. People, the trade unions leader were in jail, etc. These people came to, and they had pity for the poor European left-wing. And so I said, whoa, European Union is not a fascist continent. It's not a monolithic bloc. There is the capital, and there is the leaders following the United States on the one hand, but there is a resistance also, and there is a working class. There is a vivid working class, and I mean, if we want to regain the working class, you have to be kind of proud to be a working class. You have to transpire a little bit of optimism also to win. You have to speak with conviction. People know when you're the next intellectual or the next left-wing good-meaning people, not really convinced in what he or she said. People can send that. If you're not convinced yourself, you have to speak from the force of your conviction. Really, you have to speak and act from the force of your conviction. You can change the world. You are the worker in the docks of Marseille who is saying, this warship to Israel, I won't charge this warship to Israel. And then the colleague in Marseille said, I don't do it either. And it started with two people. In the airport of Brussels, it started with one people saying, the plane to Israel, I won't charge the plane to Israel. I don't do it. He convinced his colleague, etc., etc. It started with one person, and this conviction we have to transpire. And that's, I think, the first problem of working class left is to believe in the future of our own class and to believe in our own future. To believe really that there is an alternative possible for capitalism. Capitalism, I said it in the other debates, they are stealing our future, they are stealing our planet, they are stealing our peace. They will destroy the planet, they will destroy. They really will destroy the planet. They really will organize war against China. They will do it, and they really will steal your social security. They are thieves, they are warmongers, and so we have to believe in the alternative to that. And I think people on one hand can feel if you're serious about that, or if you're just another hobby club with some left face in your life, etc. People can feel it if you're serious about that or not. So I think that's more a problem than the right wing. Of course, I don't like the right wing. We have to kick out these fascists everywhere, out of our class, out of our cities, out of our neighborhoods, out of our schools. Fuck the fascists. Really, no compromise with the fascists. Let it be clear. But we don't have to be before the fascists are like some of rabbits to a light machine. So the fascists. No, we are the fucking party of the working class. They have to be afraid. Make the fascists afraid again. That's our task.
I mean, one of your arguments in the book is that the workers in the global south and the workers in the global north should stand together against capitalism. And how do you think, what would be a way to make that happen? Is your book a step towards this?
No, I'm very glad that the book will be translated in 10 languages, so I'm very glad. And no, it's not a chapter, it's just an idea. One of the things why I wrote the book is also for the global south, to see that Europe is not a monolithic bloc, that there is different kind of struggles going on also in Europe. And they don't have to see us as a kind of fascist continent. We are not a fascist continent. But the other way around, we have to see also what's moving in the global south. And I think this planet is now global, and we cannot advance to socialism or to progress without seeing what's happening in the global south. It is impossible to see that. And I do think there is on each level connections to make, but not only on the summits. Not only, of course, on the summit of the peace movement, of course, on the summit of the parties and the trade unions, but also on the other levels. Like we decided, I will tell that, only since recently, 2 years ago, in our party, we decided, we just began with that, with people coming from other countries in the global south, and member of our party. Let them tell their stories. Wow, I didn't know that. I was president and general secretary people from India, from the Communist Party of India, Marxists, what they did in India, I had no clue. How they still followed the situation in India. People from the Communist Party from Nepal telling, people from the Communist Party of Sudan, for example, telling, but members of our party, people of the trade union movement of Morocco, etc. We just started with it, but even in our own, shame on us, huh? Even in our own party, the rich people there are and their stories and how to make them, tell them to one another and make that human connection on that basic level is very important. I think also on a trade union level, if you can have a visit not only inside of Europe, maybe in Tunis, etc., and you have a sisterhood or a brotherhood to adopt one each other on a very, very low level, you can link each other and you can have another perspective. You can have another perspective on the world, and it is necessary because Europe is not the center of the world. And this Euro-chauvinism is 500 years of neo-colonialism and 500 years that Europe thinks it is the center of the world. We are nothing in Europe anymore. It is about China against the United States. Europe will be the lost continent in the future, and so if we are all able to see what's changing with all the difficulties and all the dialectics in the global south, I think we will be more strong again. And I don't think I do think also that most of the workers are interested. I don't think most of the workers are racist. There is a problem of racism because it's organized racism by the traditional parties. Every day again, organized racism, blah 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 about migration. But I think on the production floor, in the factory hall, in the workplace, most people that work together, they want to know each other, they want to work each other. I think that's this strength that is inside people, we can use it in the party on all levels. And it's a long way, I know, but it's the only way, in my opinion, to be really internationalistic, and really humanistic, and really socialistic.
Maybe as a last question now, who did you write this book for? Short one.
No, first of all, in our own party, we had difficulties in our party. We had a party crisis in 2003. We had a long period. We went through the desert. We had no votes. We had almost no members, etc. It was really the desert. But that's not a problem, because sometimes you need an experience that is difficult to really value the other periods. I really mean that. We needed this crisis. And then at that time we had opinions of all things going on the world. But we had nothing to say in the working class in Belgium. I'm exaggerating, of course. And we said, okay, we're gonna change that. And with the party renewal, we said, okay, we want to become really a party of the working class, and we want to have working class leaders inside the party leadership on all levels. It's a struggle now for maybe 20 years, and we go forward and forward. And we want to be known as the best party for the socio-economic struggle. I think we succeeded, like on the pension dossier. The general strike will be on the pension, for example. People know us, okay, the best party to defend our pensions is the Workers' Party of Belgium. But maybe then, after 20 years, we said maybe we exaggerated a little bit to going to the Belgian level. We needed to correct that. We needed to have a stronghold in Belgium ourselves before saying something towards any other party, or we need to create this counterforce in Belgium. That's our level of struggle. But we exaggerated a little bit, and so we discussed, okay, open also the windows of the party, and so internationalize also the party. And so the first public, quite honestly, for the book was the party members. It was not a commercial move. It was really like that, to introduce again the BRICS discussion, the China discussion, the war discussion inside every group of the party, and that happened. And then luckily the book was translated in German, in French, in English, in Turkish, etc., etc. So there are other parties also using the book. But I initially wrote it mainly for Belgium. And then people of the IPA, for example, the International People's Assembly, they said we use the book to do the opposite, to use it in NUMSA in South Africa to say, okay, there is class struggle in Europe. They are not all a bunch of fascists. They translated it in 2 Indian languages. Also, they use it in India to give a picture. So I'm glad that is possible. Okay.
Thank you so much, Peter. We are of course not done now. We now have about half an hour time for questions, and after that we also have Peter's book here, and you can buy it, and he will also sign it, so you get a very special copy then. I think we suggest I just collect 3 questions and then I'll give the mic to you. Whoa. Is there also a woman who would like to ask a question maybe?
Yes, please. Okay, then I take.
By the way, ihr könnt die Fragen auch auf Deutsch fragen und ich übersetze es dann auf Englisch, wenn euch das lieber ist. Fangen wir vielleicht da an, bitte. Geht's nicht?
Ja. Hallo? Ja.
Ja.
Thank you so much, and for your inspiring presentation. I'd like to know, it's a burning question for all leftists, for us, for very different people. How can we, between us, cope with this heterogeneity between the leftists, within the what we are calling social movement? There are so different people. You mentioned the working class, but we are not only working class, we are intellectuals. We have very different levels of income, of education, of life balance and so forth. And I think this is a very different thing to be strong together, because we are so different also. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the 2. Yes, you were the last.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If I understood it correctly, you claimed the slogan "Make the working class great again." There's someone else who wants to make the working class great again, who also speaks with conviction. And I wanted to ask you what kind of mutiny the election of President Donald Trump you consider, and if it gives you any optimism in the possibility of the working class through a political decision to transform global capitalism, and also in terms of political leadership.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation also. I'm not depressive at all, despite from my age, but I'm realizing some facts. And for instance, I don't know too much about Belgium, but for instance, in Austria, the strongest party is the right-wing party. And when you go to other countries, there is a long list. I don't want to waste my time for that. So in many regions of Europe, the right-wing parties have somehow the power. And what we did not achieve, and we means rather from the left side, this was also for social democrats and also for the communists. When you look how the elections are distributed within the various parties, the majority of the working class people vote here in Austria for the right-wing parties. Why? That's my explanation, because they provide very simple explanations. And to my opinion, I think our task could only be somehow to train, to teach, to analyze the situation, and to use somehow our brain and the brain of the people to achieve a different political movement. Thank you.
Okay, machen wir mal 3. Let's do 3 and then we do another round, okay? Otherwise we forget it.
This one, okay.
Yeah, just start.
Okay, thank you for the questions. The first okay, I do think in the resistance on all levels to what's happening, there is a huge heterogeneity that we must know, and we have to start with that. So I do agree. We mentioned some points. I didn't talk about the climate crisis. I didn't talk neither about the sexism, etc., coming up with the Donald Trump and all this movement. And in the Netherlands, for example, there's now a big movement to reclaim the night again, for young women to feel safe in the night, etc. And so there is a lot of things going on. There is a lot of movements going on, and I do agree with you if you are saying, expressing we have to search things that unite ourselves and not that divide ourselves, and we can learn also about from the past about that. I was talking about what is the identity of our party, of the party, and I would say working class in the large perspective of working class, salaries, etc. And with the working class, also everything around the working class. That's our identity as a party. But the goal is to create unity with all these layers. I do agree, and we have to learn and have to have spaces in the party and in the organization to go towards that unity. I know that's not easy. Not even under my grave. We have a lot of people, of working class people from different areas of the world, member of the party. There is a lot of discussion about also topics going on in Morocco, Sahara, about the situation in Turkey, for example. It is not an easy question. But our goal in all the things that we do has to be unity. So we have to combat sexism, but on the point of view of unity of the working class. We have to combat racism, but with the goal, the end of the goal is to have unity, etc. And not the end of the goal of the discussion is not to be more division. Because we have some people and some tendencies, they want to have the discussion on racism, on sexism, on climate, etc. To have this schoolmaster finger to the working class man that's maybe not aware of X, Y, Z. Let's have the discussion, let's have a comradely discussion, let's educate people, and the end goal has to be unity. That's important because there's a lot of divisions that we can create around identity politics, for example, vis-a-vis class politics. I'm in favor of class politics, but with a large perspective of class politics, not with a narrow perspective. And that's a debate, a constant debate. I do agree with that. Around Trump, no, I'm not positive at all. And my point of view is totally not that it's enough to have conviction, that's enough to have a program to make the working class. No, I believe in socialism, I believe in the three basic tasks of a communist party, being organize people, mobilize people, getting people in action, and arouse people, arouse the consciousness of people, giving people class consciousness. That's the goal. Without class consciousness, is also your question, you cannot change society. I know, I do know. And like in the party, we have a lot of discussions, and inside youth movements, how to educate, education programs, etc. Everywhere. Lots of concentration, it's very necessary. But we had a discussion, and maybe it's a discussion point, how to get people in touch with the party. That's something else. And so the first connecting point, connecting dot with the party can something be simple. And so there are people coming to our party that are maybe very good on the socio-economic class struggle level, but not good enough, not good at all on the international level. That's no worries. We say, okay, come to our party, and inside the party we have an educational system to arouse. That's a discussion that we do, because we need also all these conscient people to recreate another culture in society. And if you want to have another culture in society, you have to also win new people. And that's the most difficult task, we think, in winning new people. We have people in our party they come from, maybe their parents were Christian Democrats, maybe their parents were, there are even people which parents were fascists in our party. So the education, re-education, okay, education, re-education in our party is very important, but the fact that you can win also new kind of peoples, in my opinion, it's important. I do agree that the main task is educate people, knowing another current, organize people and mobilize people. These three tasks are the main tasks, and that's completely other than the whole way of what Trump is doing. Trump is one faction of the capital disguising himself as a pro-working class. People saying that the economic nationalism will re-industrialize the United States.
Would you consider it a mutiny?
Yeah, okay. Mutiny is a metaphor, and I know there's also disadvantages to use metaphor. It's not a sociological or scientific concept. I'm not pretending it is a metaphor. I don't know. I think it was a mutiny to a phase of neoliberalism, but I'm afraid it will be the main stream for the next decade, and the anti-China, the pivot to Asia that Obama already started 14 years ago to concentrate himself towards the strategic enemy in China. This pivot is going further now with Trump, and that's a change. And then the economic nationalism and the tariff wars, etc., and the other wars, I think it will be the new normal of capitalism. And we're seeing these things also happening now in the European Union. Okay, maybe it's a change of the neoliberal phase. Yes, it is. It's not a mutiny in my kind of mutiny in the book. But mutiny is a metaphor. There's disadvantages of this term. I know it's not a scientific term. I'm not sociologically claiming to have found a new category of resistance here.
Let's do four in this round, yes? Yeah, and du und David.
A very simple question. Can rich people belong to the working class? I know many people in the car industry, and they identify with the owners of the factories, and they don't care about themselves, but they have the care about, oh, my boss shall overcome the next troubles and so on. So the thing about the money.
I have a simple question which you might have answered already. What's the role in Europe, of the Social Democrats? Because historically in Austria, if you tried to organize the working class, you had to do it through the Social Democratic Party. And also you might know that there's a very strong anti-communism as part of our Second Republic. That's a no-go to be with communists, to work within the Communist Party. So I know what I'm speaking about from both sides. Because you were so adamant, I heard you also speaking in the earlier discussion about the goal being socialism. Well, they say they want socialism, but they're constantly doing class compromise. Constantly. Thank you.
I have a question about your perspective, about the future positive cooperation between the North and the South. You know, in the 60s or early 70s, there were the people of the dependency theory which said what is done is a development of underdevelopment, and now the thing which we are about to develop is how we can cooperate and make possible a development of the people in the South in general. It's a very general question, but when you talk about Europe, in economic terms perhaps, where are aspects you could focus on or bring this forward, this point, so that the North, we can cooperate with the South to bring about development in the South?
Two questions. You told about workers on the docks in Amsterdam. Antwerpen, yes, sorry. And that there is a problem that many of them vote for right-wing party, maybe have racist thinking and so on. I think the same similar would be about the question of the liberation of women, self-determination and so on. And maybe on colonial thinking. How do you think can we develop the consciousness of even these people too, to let it behind these reactionary ideologies in the heads of the people? Yes, it's a big question. And yes, I ask later maybe the second. Okay.
Starting with the last question, maybe I really agree with Lenin when Lenin says struggle is the best teacher, and it is for all of the people. And I'm seeing now people who, for example, involved in preparing the general strike of 14th of October, etc. Also people who could be described as maybe coming from chauvinist point of views, very masculine point of views, very macho point of views, but organizing together with other people the concrete action on the strike, and losing prejudices during the strike, during the action, not during a theoretical course, but doing things together. I think that also we have medical clinics, free medical clinics for the people, where people in neighborhoods can come to our doctors and our nurses, etc., for free healthcare on a high quality. There's a lot of people coming in together, and there's people coming into in our health clinics being racist, and there are a lot of people with migrant roots coming in. And so we organize on these local healthcare clinics festivals, meals like free meals, and then you have the racist worker together with the Palestinian refugee cooking together. And in doing things together, there's much more result than in only theoretical. I'm a big fan of theoretical debate, but some prejudices you cannot lose only with reading and etc. It's an intellectual thing. It's also in the doing process, and I think having people involved in the party, in the trade unions, in struggles is the best teacher. But it's a long way, and it's a difficult way. I really know. My family that works in the docks, etc. That's why I'm saying, okay, the docks is our terrain. It hurts me when a lot of dock workers vote for the extreme right. It's not an easy thing, but I'm still convinced it's fucking our class, and we have to do better some way also to convince them. But we also in the party say some people cannot be convinced. You have big time fascists also among the dock workers. Okay, you don't have to lose the discussion and time with them. But the main thing is the struggle is the best teacher. So it's my experience to lose some prejudice everywhere. Being rich and in the party, there's something. We don't have rich people in the party. We would very be in favor to have rich people in the party, because we really need money in the party, and to mobilize some money. It would be we have a lot of projects for these rich people to give their money on social media projects, etc. So we don't have the experience in our party. What you described about people in the factories more involved on their class position with more identifying themselves with the boss, that's not a money question, that's an ideological question. How do you identify yourself? And so that's an educational question, and that's not an easy thing, but it was never an easy thing. But I think it could be resolved in trade union and in the party, and on the role of the social democratic. First of all, I'm very interested to see what will be the. I think I don't know a lot about, and really don't know a lot about the Austrian Social Democratic Party, which was a very strong social democratic party, which has also done some very concrete things for the working class, like the housing project. And so in Belgium we had not that kind of social democratic. But globally, in the next 10-20 years, what would be the role of the social democratic parties? That will be a big question mark. Because before, when capitalism rose and when imperialism rose and where there was the extra profits coming from the Congo to Belgium, for example, of coming from Africa to Belgium, etc., these extra profits, they could be used to get some social projects. They could be used to calm down the proletariat and to give social welfare state. But now Trump is saying to the Europeans, you have to declare war to the social welfare state. And Mertens in Germany last week said, okay, we cannot afford a welfare state. We can afford 100 billion euros to give to Rheinmetall. That we can afford. We can afford to buy Panzer and Panzer, but we cannot afford schools, hospitals. As we can. That he said. There will be a war. And so the traditional role of the Social Democrats in the 20th century globally was to distribute this. Globally, no, I'm not speaking about Austria, but globally was to redistribute these extra profits and to calm down the proletariat. Okay, it's very coarse, very that was their role. But now there will be some kind of problems of extra profits, and there will be an attack on the welfare state. So I don't know if you see, like for example in France, the social democracy completely collapsed because there is no historic role for them anymore. In the north of Belgium, they completely collapsed. In the south of Belgium, not. So that will be the main questions. And in this new phase, I think these social democrats that still lost, they will have to choose sides in this new phase. Will they continue to govern the new phase of capitalism and to govern? Will the SPD, for example, in Germany, stay inside the government with Mertens that destroys the welfare states, the project of the social democracy? It will be an act of suicide, a political suicide that every political and sociological student will be study for 50 years if they do that. I don't know whether they will do. So their historic role was what it was in general. I'm not speaking about Australia special, but there is a new phase, and I think they will be wiped out, which will create other problems because we used to have some. It was clear what was social democracy, and we could work together on one hand and have quarrels. But if they are disappearing, and if the Christian Democrats also are disappearing, everything looks new. Shit. There are new populist writing, but maybe not fascists. The second biggest party in Belgium that's in power is a very right-wing party, but not a fascist party. And they filled in the gap of the social democrats. It's not because they are disappearing that everyone is coming to the communists. There are new kind of phenomena filling up the gap. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I really do think we are in a new phase. They can't do what they did for one century, the distribute some extra profits. Yeah, I don't know, to be quite honest. No, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to fill the time. We can discuss that. I don't know.
So then we do the two last questions, you and you. Okay, let's do it. Yeah, we have a bit of time, but
Three questions.
three questions, yeah. Here, here, and here.
I have a question about the practicability of everything we basically just talked about. Because I really appreciate the optimism, the hope, and I try to hold on to those same values day by day, but reading the news, being a student of political sciences, it's quite hard to just be optimistic and hopeful for the future. And the question that I have is not only that I would need some practical instructions, but also what we see now is there's lots of names. There's talks about techno-feudalism, about oligarchy, about post-democracy, and what I want to know is, let's just forget about whatever we want to call it, but right now what the system looks like is basically that even if we organize, mobilize, and let those struggles be a lesson, the people, the demos, doesn't seem to stand a chance against those now regimes who like to be authoritarian and kind of enjoy it also and like to also portray themselves as authoritarians. And as we can see, for instance, in Serbia right now, just a European example, we now see that Vučić is trying to just destroy everything about those uprisings by mobilizing the police forces against the people. And at the same time, we're now, talking about techno-feudalism, living in a time where artificial intelligence and other softwares have become not only warfare instruments, but also they're used to control people. We're now talking about this very, very scary Palantir from the very, very objectively speaking, not good person, Peter Thiel, and we know his connections all over the world, and they're also not quite good ones. And what this software for me seems to be is very much the biggest manifestation of techno-feudal oppression, just an instrument for oppression, for controlling people. And how can we overcome especially like those burdens that the now powerful and rich, having all of those possibilities and technologies they have, how can we overcome that, mobilize and organize and still be, what we are, the most powerful force in the society, the demos, the people, the working class people especially. And I just need any practical instructions, just anything to give me hope so that I can go home optimistic, smiling. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything as in-depth as the previous question, which I think is really excellent. But I want to also acknowledge, I'm really grateful for the depth of your analysis, both at a theoretical level and also some of the practical things you mentioned. Having said that, I want to go back to the Social Democrats and have a specific question about them. It's like, were you surprised, given all your experience in more recent years, with respect to militarism and especially in Germany and I guess in much of the rest of the Europe, how willingly they kind of go on board to this tendency? Thanks.
What is your strategy to create a new media, which is a new left media, which is opposed to all the right media and capitalist-owned media, to gain publicity in Belgium? I'm interested into that.
Okay, thank you for the questions. In my opinion, it is not feudalism. I don't, in my opinion, it's imperialism. And that's an important discussion. I don't think we went back in history to feudal relations. Feudalism is a certain stage in the world that we have discussed, and that capitalism has passed by. And there is other relations power relations and economic relations in capitalism than in feudalism. And I think in the capitalism and in the development of imperialism, the last 100 years, since Lenin wrote imperialism as a higher stage, the last 100 years, we should ask ourselves what points are changed since 1916 when he wrote that. And I do think globally the imperialist monopolistic class of every bloc has had more power, but we should define it as an imperialist force, not as a feudal force. So I do think that to mystify also with all these kind of terms would not clarify the situation. I would like to re-argue in class terms and in terms about imperialism and capitalism, because there are different phases in capitalism and imperialism, but at the end it is the power of this monopolistic class that is trying to accumulate more power, more capital, that has to export capital. The merge between financial capital and industrial capital, etc., is more great than ever. We can have a whole discussion on that. But I think there are some things changed since 1916. We have to study it. But the main things are the same. So I do think it's important that we're still in a kind of an imperialist phase in the world. That's my opinion, and that's a discussion piece. And I'm not agreeing with like Yaris Varoufakis, who's I know him, we have a discussion, but I don't think it will advance people with this kind of new. Maybe I didn't have to call my book Mutiny, and I don't want to make Mutiny a new kind. I know if you write a book, you have to search a sexy title, and I think techno-feudalism is just a sexy title of the book of Varoufakis, but it's not a scientific sector neither. And I think that okay, we can have a discussion on the class and the evolution of the class struggle. When the first machines entered in the factory, in the manufacturers, the first workers in the UK, but also in Belgium, they smashed the machines. The Luddites, etc., they smashed the machines. And Marx had a discussion and he said, okay, but the machines are not the enemy. It's the capitalistic use of the machines that's the enemy, because you become a slave of the machine, and etc. But the same machines that are now in the factory could liberate you also from your work, having less working hours a day, having more possibilities to educate your sons and your daughters. It's not the machines. The machines could be freeing also. There is a potential in this machine. There was a discussion with Marx and the Luddites, and Marx, I really agree with Marx. Not because I have to. No, I really agree with Marx. The machine is not the problem, the automatization was not the problem, but the capitalistic use. And so I think this fourth industrial revolution of this artificial intelligence, etc., at itself, that is not a problem, because it could really ease our world on many tasks. We could have a 32-hour week. We could eradicate everything from simple work tasks, etc., with redistribution of the work, etc. We could translate on a massive scale and have discussion with the other parts of the globe with all these things. This technology at itself, it's not the enemy. It's the capitalistic use of this technology, the control use, the fact they are using it in Israel against Gaza in the genocide. They're testing the West Bank. I know they're using AI again as a war machine. They're using the satellites of Musk, Global Link, and what is called in the Ukraine war. They're testing it. But it is not the satellites itself, it's not the technology itself that's the enemy, it's the capitalistic use. And we should have more forces, also technological forces, to own these new production capacities and to develop it, because all the people that create all these machines, that create all this all the brains that are being there, like for example in Silicon Valley, Musk wanted to have one of the discussion points between Musk and Bannon in the US was Musk, Silicon Valley, you know it, I think, they work with stolen labor from India, so they're buying some all the brain name from India and from Nepal and from Pakistan, etc. They're buying intelligent people. They let them come to Silicon Valley. They develop all these kind of machines, etc. And now Musk said, okay, they have to be deported. ISIS also have to deport this kind of. And then Elon Musk says, oh no, that was not the plan. I'm a Nazi, my parents were Nazi with some German songs in South Africa today, etc. But it was never my plan because my factory has to continue. And that's a contradiction in the capital between Musk and Bannon and this. And that's how to transform this contradiction also in a contradiction in the workforce, and how to convince this labor force in Silicon Valley to join the No Kings, No Thrones marches with 6 million people on the streets, which was one of the most huge protests ever. I know it didn't change everything, but against the stress, against there is nothing happening, there is a big resistance also in the United States. The Trump now sending down ICE to California, etc. There is a display of power on the one hand, but there is also, by doing that, the fact he's very uncertain of something. People organize themselves to kick out ICE and this anonymous vans out of the cities. There is resistance even in the United States. It will be difficult. Maybe we'll pass also in Europe some kind of phase of fascism and some kind of phase of war. It is possible. But even then, in this kind of phase, we have to mobilize and organize ourselves. So optimism and pessimism is also on the perspective of time. And I know we would like to have victory tomorrow. We won't have victory tomorrow. It won't be like that. We won't be victorious tomorrow, but we have to be victorious for this generation. That has to be our perspective, and that's possible because we are in a turmoil. In silent times, it can be silent. The 70s till now, it's silent. Now we are in turmoil. I don't know where this turmoil will end. Maybe in fascism, maybe in war. But even if we pass a stage of fascism and war, we will end in socialism. That is our goal. And even if there is fascism, and even if there is war, we have to be the group of people inspiring the other peoples towards the world of self. So that is our optimism, our view of society. That the long-term optimism has to reign. If you don't inspire that, you have to inspire your colleagues at university. And that's not naive, and we're gonna be hurt, we're gonna be arrested, we're gonna be, it will be a long term, I know it will be hard, like it is hard already today for people, our comrades in Turkey, like it's already hard today for people in India, the peasant leaders being arrested, like it's hard everywhere, like in Serbia, like it is hard, but a long-term perspective and the confidence in the demos, in the working class people, that are two legs for the long-term perspective. It's a duty. If we don't have this optimism, we will not win. We will really. It is possible to inspire people on that one. Social democracy? No, I didn't expect it. When Germany, so the United States, and it was not Trump at that time, they said to Germany, you have to cut off the Russian gas. And even I know we have a big factory of BASF in Antwerp, so the German chemical factory, also in Wanken, etc. And the big boss of BASF, he said in Germany, I'm against the sanctions against Russia, logically, because the BASF factory, the Volkswagen factory, they work on cheap Russian gas. They worked on it. So their products are competitive with cheap Russian gas. I explain it in one chapter in the book. And then the Americans came to Germany and they said, cut off the Russian gas and buy our very expensive liquefied natural gas. The Schali gas, what I don't know what the word in the fracking gas, very bad for the climate, very expensive, and you have to transport it. And we had to build in Europe, all over in Europe, new capacities on the ports. And so a lose-lose situation for Europe and a win-win situation. And no, I didn't know that this Schröder, who had connections with Russia, who had connections with Gazprom, BASF, Volkswagen, they were against all this kind. But Trump, no, I was surprised. And the next step will be the discussion on China. BASF has, for example, will invest $10 billion in a factory in China. And the right wing of the US, they want to decouple the European economy with China. Will they do 2 times the same mistake? They shot themselves in one foot already. Recession, Germany is now in recession. Everyone is agreeing it's because of mainly the energy prices and then the tariffs on the... will they shoot themselves secondly in the foot now with decoupling of China? I don't know. It is possible. I'm afraid it is possible they will do it. It will be bad for the European continent and it will be bad for war, because having also economic ties, even if it's capitalistic ties with China, it's better to avoid war. If you're doing business with other countries and if you're interfered on an economic level, the tension to wage war is. So I don't know whether they will do it. And the last question was about, I can't read.
The media.
The media,
format,
yeah,
yes.
Like how you
very concrete. We work on 3 levels, and so 2 levels are a big problem. The first level, as it is now, we are very dependent on the traditional media. Meaning that I think the most of our spokesmen and women in the traditional media, they come and they can say socio-economic things, but there is a censorship on all the difficult things like NATO, etc. No one knows us. And to be quite honest, we are still too dependent as a party from our visibility. So it's a big problem, but that's a reality. We are in the media, but there is a big censorship. But for example, they do say the PvdA, the Workers' Party of Belgium, is the biggest party pro-Palestine. That everyone knows by the media. Then we have the social media, also a big problem that will come. We are the most popular party on TikTok. We had a lot of discussions. Some comments said, okay, you cannot use TikTok. We said, fuck you, we use everything. And so we are the most popular party on TikTok, on Instagram, and not on Facebook, but almost on Facebook. But now in 10 days, political parties will be blocked to sponsor. So it will have large consequences. And so we are building up on Signal and on WhatsApp communities to reach people. And we are trying to build up, together with the trade unions, Brussels Media House, an alternative concept for the long term. Because on the long term, we know we cannot rely on Meta and on the traditional media. It's a weak point of our party that we are too dependent for our visibilities on these 2 first pillars. So we are now in the early stage to try. We have some alternative media, but this third thing that we want to do it good, not because before that's our when the working class movement in Belgium started, they had ambition. People could not read and write. In 1850, 1860, when the working class movement started, and then they had the ambition, working class people, they had an ambition to alphabetize working class people in every section, but also to let compete their journal, Forwards it was called, to be the biggest journal. So their ambition was never to create an alternative, marginalized media. And that's a big discussion. Should we build a marginalized media, or should we try to build a very big dominant media and educate people also? So that's in the situation we are in. But we're still too dependent on the first 2 things, and we are on the Brussels Media House. In our vision, it would be nice if we can do it also on a more international level. And at the beginning there was the language problem, but now with artificial intelligence and other means, maybe we can do something that's the situation. Voilà, that was all.
Thank you, Peter, so much, and thank you all for coming.